Shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces. At Sisters of the Rose, we collect stories and create those safe spaces for people to heal through the power of self-expression and truth. We've created a sanctuary for people to speak their truths and alchemize their pain into medicine.
Okay. Welcome, Blake. I am
Hi,
really
Natalie.
excited to have you here today, speaking a little bit about your current experience so far with Rose Author. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this feels very tender and beautiful because it's the first time maybe that we're speaking about this project with an intention for others to hear a bit about your experience so far, because we've been in like a container together, but this is
Right.
now starting to get ready for this to be, ready to be birthed into the physical world. Firstly, thank you. It's such an honor for like to be on this path with you, and like it's just been so beautiful
Mm,
in every way. Yeah, I feel
thank
like
you.
I'm also with your baby, like birthing this with you, It's like ours.
Yeah,
So,
you sure are.
I'd love to hear more about why now? Like, I know that you've had this desire for a while, but why is it the right time to bring this book to the world right now?
Wow. Yeah, good question. I mean, the short answer is that I just got really clear in myself, like in my body, that just an undeniable feeling came over me that now's the time. Um,
Hmm.
and to say a little bit more about that, like 2025 was a pretty hard year for me. There was a lot of losses in a row, culminating with the death of my mother last fall. And yeah, there was a whole process there. It was quite an ordeal, um, and truly like an initiation in many ways into being the oldest member of my family now, or at least my generation, because both of my parents are now deceased, and also just the feeling of like I could see and feel myself while going through this process with my mother, and I could recognize that like I had changed. I have grown into somebody who can actually handle this um, without being traumatized. And seeing that, feeling that was like the most powerful of affirmations of like, yeah, you're ready to do this. And in many ways, the time that has elapsed from like 6 years ago when I first really got the clear download of like this is the book that I want to write until more recently has actually been a self-aware journey that like I need to go through a series of initiations to really embody this download, this transmission before I can really write it in a way that's going to be powerfully felt. So
Mm.
I've been kind of patiently waiting and going through initiations and looking for a sign that now's the time. And yeah, even before my mother passed, it was just kind of clear as day, like a messenger whispering in my ear, like after this, you're ready.
Wow. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, you bet.
Yeah. Thank you. And when you're speaking, I'm just remembering the sacredness of like the divine timing of this. And somehow you're with that, with the integration of it in your own being, right, as a message. And that really is an art because many of us have things we want to share with the world. But, from you, I know very much that the embodiment of that transmission is like so important, right? That actually the reader can feel it because it's so integrated in your being. And I think that takes a lot of like maturity and discernment to like figure out, am I really ready to
Hmm.
share this? And
Yeah.
that patience, has paid off, as someone that's reading and is walking the way with you. It's like a very different level of transmission comes through. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I've been on the other side of that too, where I've tried to learn things from teachers who are just kind of spouting knowledge from the brain versus like learning from teachers who truly embody what they teach, who are really walking the talk, and it's the difference is night and day. Um, so in many ways, in all the things I do in my professional world, coaching and facilitating, teaching, etc. It's the same thing there. It's like teach from what your lived reality is, and that carries the message much better than you know quoting gurus or
Yeah.
regurgitating wisdom you heard elsewhere.
Yeah. And I'm curious, seeing as this is the first time you've spoken publicly about this book, what what would you like to share? Like, there's a starting to be a preparation for preparing the world for this and taking it outside of our cocoon. And yeah, if you had to summarize, this transmission, what would be that summary of the work that you're really inviting the world into here?
Mm. Oof. The book is first and foremost, is a total reimagining, reprogramming, redefinition of love, and how we think of love, how we relate to love, and how we do love as a verb, like how we use love in our lives. And I hold it quite deeply that a lot of what causes people suffering in the world is a poor relationship with love, like a scarce relationship with love. And that if we can enhance that and we can expand the flow of love through our lives and we can channel it to the places that need it the most, that quite naturally produces healing, wholeness, and the recovery of a lot of power and life force energy that we've been squandering trying to survive in a
Mm.
loveless world, or in a world with, or a life with very little love in it. So it's
Mm.
the old cliche is, the Beatles lyric is "Love is all you need." Um, but it really takes that concept and like drills into quite a bit of specificity around like how to communicate love, how to do love as a love language, how to apply love, how to think about love in a way that in my life has made all the difference. It's through receiving this transmission of love and learning to live in alignment with it that essentially everything that I love about my life has come true. And so my primary motivation is to give that back, to transmit that to the world in a way that maybe others can start to look at love through my lens, or through the lens that I've constructed from the things I've been taught, and apply it to end their suffering and manifest their dreams.
Wow. That it feels like so clear and clean in the way that you've just like, yeah, which shows
Thank
there's
you.
a readiness, right? It's just like, yeah, of course. And at a time like this book is coming at a time where I really feel like there's an availability of humanity to receive this too, right? So again, we trust the sacred timing because maybe 3 years ago, this transmission wouldn't be fully ready within you, but also like thinking about the hearts of others, like the world is ready for this. The world is kind of ready for, and in my own journey, reading your writing, it's like the upgrades in my own being are, yeah, like there's a readiness for that. And so,
Mm,
yeah, it's beautiful to witness that kind of timing of why this message is kind of coming to the world now. Yeah.
yeah, I sincerely hope you're right about the world. And I'm deeply touched to hear about how it's been landing for you, Natalie. That's actually incredible feedback for me, because you've been so intimately involved with this whole thing. But yeah, I think that the world is in a place right now where there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty. People are experiencing a lot of like isolation, separateness, loneliness, um, and in many ways, through my through my lens, the antidote for all those things is more love. And so I think deep down, whether people are like fully aware of it or not, um, everyone is looking to expand in love, to have more love in their lives. And I think we have a deep, like, animal knowing that that is the best thing for us. Um,
Mm,
in some ways, I think COVID kind of proved that, that like lack of human contact with loved ones or even anyone, really like stifles or harms our well-being. And since COVID, I think people have really started to like reprioritize their lives a bit more, to
Mm,
put like love, connection, relationships a little bit higher up than maybe they did before. And so
mm,
people are looking. They're looking for answers. They're looking for teachers. They're looking for workshops, books that are going to guide them toward greater aliveness and loving their lives more. So yeah, I
mm.
sincerely hope that the world is ready for this, and that I just get to be one of the lucky people who happens to be attempting to put this download that's coming into the collective consciousness. Like, it doesn't belong to me. I'm just one of the people who's attempting to write it, and write it down.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I know that I've been pushing you a lot on
Mhm.
bringing your vulnerability and your own personal story into this. And I know, that maybe there wasn't so much of an intention to share so much maybe about your story, but I think there is just this radical truth in your story that yeah, is so relevant to this
Mm,
journey, so that's been, yeah, a beautiful unraveling somehow, like unraveling those
yeah,
pieces of the deeper why. Like, but why are you here to deliver me this message, right? Like, because that
sure.
matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose, and thank you for that encouragement to bring more of my like my personal story into this writing, because in many ways, like, that's how I got here. That's how I got to
Mm,
be, you know, the guy or one of the people who is delivering this in written form. Is that I've had a series of events in life that have brought me to my knees, radically changed my timeline, rock bottom and peak experiences, and deaths of parents and drug addiction and all sorts of things that have befallen me, that are not necessarily all that different or worse than the stuff that befalls other people. But having found a way to engage with personal transformation and even spirituality over the last 10 years, especially, I've been able to see all of my life experiences as one kind of continuous arc, like one hero's journey, one um, unrelenting course of study that has prepared me for doing just this. And indeed,
mm,
like most of the really powerful lessons that are in the book, I learned them through some big life experience, many of which were painful and traumatic. And it's through the process of like healing those things and recovering that lost power that I was able to become who I am today. And so, yeah, I appreciate you for, yeah, getting me to write more of my hero's journey into the script, because I think it does set a better context and a more heart-centered
mm,
relationship between me and the reader, or between the transmission and the reader.
mm. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think in a time where we spoke about this briefly recently, but like in a time where the non-hierarchy, is coming back, and we're not kind of necessarily looking up to a guru in the same way. This is a radically different message when it comes from you as a fellow brother on the path, right? Because that's actually what this is like, I'm here with you in this pain, and I'm with this, and I'm sharing that from a place where I'm like, I'm not further ahead than you. And I really feel, when I look at leadership in the world now and I'm inspired by others, like, I'm mostly inspired by people that bring their messages from that space of like radical truth and deep vulnerability. And so
Hmm.
for me, it's like the Rose Author Program was manifested on that creation of like, there's no other way I can do this, actually, and the right people find me. If people aren't ready to bring the story, it's like it's not the right fit, because it's not the same. Yeah, it's not the same when you're just delivering a practice to me, but I don't feel your association or what you've accessed as a result of that.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe this is a hallmark of the coming of the age of Aquarius, where it used to be like the Piscean age was all about the person at the top of the pyramid, the one that is being put up on high as leader or guru, teacher, Christ, whatever. Um, yeah, and in the age that we're moving into, I think it's much more like collective centered leadership, or like leading from the middle. Um, which starts with a lot of listening, listening to the collective, empathizing with the collective, relating that to and through my own personal experience, but also, yeah, like not holding myself out as having all the answers, but rather presenting the truth of what's working for me and why. And let
Hmm.
others take it if they want to.
Yeah, beautiful. That's an
Yeah.
invitation then, isn't it?
Sure.
And any moments in your writing journey, that have stood out for you? I know that we've been through, many peak experience moments and then many moments where it's all came crashing down and we're then with the question of, but how and why? And, and we question everything. But I'd love to bring that to life, any moments in your own journey of initiation with this book that you feel to share.
Hmm. Yeah, certainly like most of the first phase, which was like, the last couple months, and particularly the first month, it was really just like pure expression, almost unfiltered, like I'll just let the words come through and like say all the things I want to say and say things that are probably unnecessary for the book and just go with it. Like it's just much more feminine process,
Yeah.
but also very, very much like, you know, me and my masculine, like setting up this office to do the writing in and like setting aside the time and the priorities and everything to kind of like support my creative feminine side to just, whew, and gush. And she certainly did gush, like I think it was like 100,000 words in that first month or something. Um, yeah. And, perhaps like, the moment that stands out, I think the most as being just, like the biggest like heart eruption was, yeah, on my mom's birthday, in February, which was, all of 4 months after she passed away. That was the day that I wrote the chapter. Um, it's really all about death and our relationship with death and how much I learned about my own relationship with life and death by my parents both dying before their time. Um, And there've been a lot of emotional writings for sure, but that day I was like, just writing through tears like the whole time, and yeah, it felt
So
like a really
beautiful.
beautiful way to, yeah, to honor her. I mean, like her ashes are sitting right over here next to me. Like she's been with me this whole journey, and yeah, I think that day really stands out as like maybe the most powerful. Um, and now I'm kind of in an interesting phase with it where, it feels like the baby has crowned, like we've reached the widest point, and now it's just
Yeah.
keep breathing, keep pushing, but also be patient, let the body, let the process, trust it. And this phase is a little bit more challenging for me and brings up a little bit more like doubt and yeah, just like asking bigger questions like, is anyone going to get this? Or like, is this even relevant? And, it's like I get kind of like this, and then it's hard to
Yeah.
perceive it from a reader's lens. But, coming along, little by little, I feel pretty good about where we're at right now. And I can see
Yeah.
the light at the end of the tunnel. Like we're well past halfway, it's home stretcher. And and
Yeah, for
that's,
sure.
that's exciting all by itself. Yeah.
Phew, yeah, what a journey. What a journey. And there's something about your mother here as being that guiding pillar for so much of the
Hmm.
journey, right? Because I know, well, we speak a lot about our relationship to our feminine in these times being like this massive anchor point to then how we come through into the world. And so it really feels like she's our guide too in this transmission, and she's with us, in guiding us to share what wants to be shared. And for me, that's the beginning of everything, right? Is our relationship to the feminine, to the mother. And somehow I told you the other day that you're going to be the first author because I have many working with, and it's all funny with timings, I'm like, oh, who's going to actually be the first? And I feel like that's happening because ultimately the rose consciousness is in devotion to the mother. And I feel like most of the work I do now is a death doula. I kind of say I work a lot with death and through books. But often it's about reconstructing our relationship to the feminine core. our feminine relationship to the mother that then orients everything else around it. So I'm in deep trust that actually this and that day that was quite profound for you as that writing day felt like somehow the core of this transmission was reached, because from that place the energy around it sits, and then that takes care of itself because the right people find it.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully what you're naming here is something else that the world is ready for. Um, a return to trusting the feminine, a return to protecting her, to listening to her, to, and in all forms, of course, like in female bodies, the feminine in male bodies, even acknowledging that that exists and honoring it as well, the feminine in children, the feminine in nature, in taking care of our planet and stewarding it toward, a sustainable relationship. Like it's all very much a return to and an atonement with the feminine that we have taken for granted for so long.
Mm.
And
I
the
have
ways
so
that
many
we've become
goosebumps when you speak.
like looking at that entitled child within all of us who just expects mother to just give without ever giving anything back. you know and in many ways that was for me the best part of my mother's passing, actually, was that I was finally able to give her um, so much like profound care that she had mostly refused previously. So there was really like a beautiful gifting at the end there, and giving giving the blessing of an end of life to somebody who gave me the blessing of life itself.
Mm. Like really full circle, I'm seeing the spiral as you're saying that, like the return, yeah, to that, and that act of love, in those moments, it was a transmission of a love beyond what we can understand in our mind, like, and
Yeah.
that's what you're speaking to. It's beyond the individual, it's beyond what we can feel and see, and that's what we're opening people up to, this
Totally.
universal love. You name that often with the universal love, and I can't wait for others to also experience this through the teachings, because ultimately these books are not just books, they are transmissions, and they are rites of passages, and they are only ever going to find their way into the books of the hands that are meant for them. And that's the magic of books, is that, somehow, we have so many stories like that. Like, I don't know how this book found its way to me, but there was just a divine timing and divine orchestration in that. I'm going to give you a chance to like speak that, like, for someone listening. Yeah. Who are you inviting? Like, who are you inviting in to be the reader, to share this message with? Like, what comes? Who is this for?
I mean, broadly speaking, it's for anybody who wants more love in their lives, which I think is literally everyone. Um, but certainly it's for people who have struggled to love themselves, people who have a difficult time accepting the circumstances of their lives, or the things that have happened to them or the things that they've done. It's for people who want to enhance their love relationships, their interpersonal relationships, who want to grow beyond the relationship playbook that we all inherited, and in all of its limiting ways, and dependency driven ways. It's for people who want to rise out of codependence, who want to have healthy and inspiring relationships, not just with romantic partners, but with children, parents, friends. um, yeah, to learn how to say I love you to just about everything and everyone and mean it, and to feel that what that does to not just their lives, but the way that they relate to you and how much love you feel you have in your life, and create a rising tide across the board that enhances just about everything we do. And it's also a book for people who want to find a sense of like their sacred life purpose, they know they have gifts, they know they have love they want to give to the world, but something is kind of blocking that. I think that this codex, if we can call it that, really like breaks down a lot of the blockages, and creates an abundance of the flow of love that is um, becomes undeniable and self-motivating. And in many ways, that's where true life purpose comes from, is effulgent, overflowing love. So it'll appeal to anyone who fits any of those descriptions. Basically, it's a recipe for ending suffering, and it comes with a lot of practices and like embodiment um, methods and rituals and ways to not just like learn this with your mind by reading it, but take it into your life as a practical experience that you can do again and again to really learn to embody these teachings, which is really where the change occurs. So it's not just a personal story or a transmission about love. It's also like a coaching package in a book. Right? There's plenty of guidance and lessons and assignments and exercises to do that'll really help the reader become this teaching.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm so excited for the next few months where we refine it together and start to go into the questions of what does the cover look like, and like bring it to
Mhm.
life even more. But it felt beautiful to have you speak about this because it also attunes us deeper to kind of like zooming out so we can then bridge this and bring this beautiful gift to the world in the right way, because actually this matters, how we package it up with a bow, like how that looks and feels. And we've spoken a lot about that, right? Like it's not a journey, it's not a normal book, like I'm not going to say anything about too much about this because it's like very special. But like you say, it's, yeah, there's a path of initiation that is being invoked here. um yeah, and I think that's very Aquarian. We spoke about that in your astrology too, right? You're bringing something very different. Like this isn't a book where you just relax and kind of it's very active. It's a deep invitation, and it's really a model of the work you do in the world, right? I can imagine that go by reading this, you'd also feel like you've gone through a container, but maybe over 9 months. It's that kind of depth that
Yeah,
we're accessing here.
certainly. And for people who have looked at some of the container things that I do, like these, longer workshops that last a week or, require some travel and time off of work and time away from families and, a more significant financial investment, a book like this might actually be a really wonderful sampler, like a really wonderful like preview or taste of what that world of transformational workshops is all about, like a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of like what's really going on in there. And I hope it does. I hope it inspires people to take their transformation and investing in themselves more seriously. Because in my opinion, it's the best investment you can possibly make. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
start with a book, check out a workshop, go from there.
And my final question is, how has this book changed you? Writing it physically on paper, like, because often we find
Yeah,
that this was like what I wrote, like when I first wrote my first book, that somehow writing it like rewrote my own DNA and cellular structure,
yeah.
and not just by me reading it, like you writing it. Like, yeah, how has that looked for you in the sense of actually being the agent in your own story, right? Because you're also rewriting the next chapter through, sharing this.
Yeah, I mean, that captures it pretty well. I think kind of two answers come through. One is that doing this, writing this book, birthing it out, getting all of these many, many thoughts and feelings onto paper, um, has required me to like, double and triple down and like commit quite deeply to my relationship with myself, like between my masculine and feminine, like my inner marriage, my inner union. I'm actually wearing my little intermarriage ring right now.
Mm,
Yeah, like my relationship with myself being strong and healthy and full of love is a lot of what is making this possible. So that was already there in a very strong way, but I really had to like commit, like really choose this relationship um, and put it really like front and center. And that has been a profound experience that has just kind of leveled me up in that way significantly. And this is a major topic that's in the book as well. So it's as I'm writing about these lessons, I'm looking in that mirror. And then the other part is you kind of touched on in your follow up thoughts is that like I've had an idea of myself writing a book for 10 years or more, but like really feeling myself as an author is relatively new. Um, and I've done some writing in the past, and I even had like a couple little things published here and there, but not my own book. This is 100x what I've done before. So there's also a bit of like my self concept, which is another thing I talk about in the book quite a lot. Like I'm updating my self concept to include, a piece of an identity where I am a published author, even though it's not technically true yet. Like by identifying with it already, um, yeah, that motivates me and helps me to like get to know this part of
Mm.
myself, which is fun. For a 45-year-old relationship to be discovering new parts is exciting.
Oh, wow. That's one thing that I often hear from people when they're like thinking or contemplating a book. They're kind of telling me often, oh, but I'm not ready yet. Or, I'm kind of, there's this idea that I need to be like at the end of my life or I have to be like 90 or something. I don't know. And it's just like, no, like, why aren't we actually, and you spoke to that really beautifully, right? That is the rebirth. That is the process that's underneath this whole program is this is actually you enabling your consciousness to release a body of work so that actually you can step into a new identity. So we have no idea yet what's coming for you, Blake, because actually
Right.
you're creating a lot of space in your consciousness to actually be guided into something new. And for me, that's the book piece. It's like, what am I ready to own and deliver so that also I can create space in my being to then be in the next layer of my journey, right? And I'm really curious about that, like where this book will
Yeah.
also lead you next.
I'll let you
That's the
know when I get
magic.
there. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
magic. We'll see, won't we? Yeah, well, we're gonna do another one of these
Oh.
in several months, right? So maybe we can have a follow up on this question.
Yeah, and there might be some clarity, but yeah, it's also nice to be in the void, right? Because once one identity is, I guess, alchemized and integrated, then there's a completely, and this is why this project coincides with I run pilgrimages to Egypt. This is why it's the same transmission, because Egypt often for people is like you call in another timeline of like something beyond what you know in your
Mhm.
consciousness, and it feels like that's also brewing within you. Like, oh, like what's also the other side of this? So yeah, thank you
Yeah,
just for your trust, your availability, your courage, and
yeah,
yeah, I really, it's just such an honor to to be in this with you in this way. And because I'm still learning, this is something that I started doing in the last 18 months, and it very much has been guided by people starting to ask me, will you be my book doula? Will you write my book with
yeah,
me? And then I'm like, of
yeah.
course, yes, I will.
Right. Yeah.
And, we do this together and like, I think it's my dream job. When you don't plan it, you're like, this is like my actual dream job, but I didn't plan it in any way. It's like such a gift.
Yeah. Congratulations, Natalie. It's an honor to support you in your dream job as well. You're doing great.
Okay, my love. Any final comments for the final as we wrap this up? Anything that feels important that you want to share?
Gosh,
Um,
if anybody watching this has like a total lightning strike or a hit on what the title should be, just based on what you've heard so far, let us know. We have some
yeah,
ideas, but we're
yes.
not quite sure what
Yeah.
the title is yet. So let us know.
There you go. That's a really good. Yes. Let's get that feedback. What are people feeling? Okay. Thank you, brother. Speak to you again
You're
soon and
welcome.
wishing you
Yeah.
a
See you
beautiful
soon.
day.
Thanks, Natalie. See you soon.